Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Dr. Dady, Center for Health and Healing. Today, I have some wonderful guests, and the topic will be empowering women in 2025, entrepreneur women. So, really talking about the stories of my two guests, which is Candice Morgan
Hi.
and Susan Honey.
Hey.
And we're going to talk a little bit about their journey and why they are now entrepreneurs, and maybe step by step of empowering you on how to really become an entrepreneur and get rid of that fear. Candice, I really love your story. And so I'd love everyone to hear your background, what where you were working, what you were doing, stepped aside to grow your own business.
Okay. Yeah. So my background is not very much women in leadership. I came from a very high control religion where it was against our religion to have women in leadership. So after I left, I found myself searching for mentors. You want to see somebody who represents you. You need that representation. So I was seeking out people on the internet, or I'm really good at conversations. So I was meeting people and networking and finding women, and just to the smallest degree, like how do they dress? How do they stand in a conference room? Things like that. And then also on a more higher level, how are they presenting themselves on a stage? What is their vocabulary? What are they reading this month? And just emulating that. And I'm younger. I'm at a very early stage in my entrepreneurship, quote, quote. But I am kind of looking behind me at women that are in a similar situation, escaping maybe it's not a cult, but maybe they were in some sort of a difficult marriage or some sort of a trapped situation where they did not feel empowered. And now that I've taken a couple steps away from that, I have that urge to like turn around and like help bring out some of these women who need that need that empowerment themselves. So that's kind of what has inspired me to leave my corporate role, because I have been learning that I have the skill of networking. I have a unique story, and the more I'm able to share that, the more I'm able to help women who identify with the story that I come from.
So you left a religious, well, are we going to call it a cult? Basically,
Yes, let's
okay.
just call it a
So
cult.
you leave
Yes.
and you're like, wait a minute, I've never worked out in this world. And so I have to start from like learning how to dress, how to talk, what
Yes.
I should say. That is so amazing to me. So then you're searching, you're looking, and were you ever even on the internet when you were?
I was. So it's very strange. It was almost like I've compared it to, maybe I spent my whole life playing baseball and I got really good at baseball. And then I suddenly moved over into soccer. And I'm like, okay, the rules are different. I'm not as, I have to like figure out what the transferable skills are. And you're right. Like I did that around the age of 30. So I was like, into my adulthood already. I was a parent of two already. I went to college in my 30s, because obviously, like, secondary education was not something that was encouraged in that culture. Um, but it's windy outside. Um, so I had to kind of figure out how the skills that I got really good at, because I'm a type A person. I am an achiever. I like to be good at what I do. And I was good at that cult game. I was good at being a submissive wife. I was a homemaker. I homeschooled my kids. And then figure out, okay, back to square one. What are the transferable skills I have from that life that I can use in this new soccer game, you
But
know?
in your soccer game, we'll call it, you then had to, I know the work you were in, you worked with 90% men, right? In that
Oh,
game
you're
too.
talking about when I moved over into corporate.
That's right.
Yes.
And you went to corporate. And
Yes.
so, but when I first heard you speak, I was very impressed with the way you handle, the conversation, or really when you were standing up and speaking right away, I was like, wow, she, because I really record some of the things that people say in our group when I first met you, and I was very impressed with the way you carried yourself. Right when I first met you. So when you told me, when we had coffee and you told me your story, I was like, wow, like that, people complain in this world about that, what they don't have and what they don't do, but they never really talk about, or they do talk about, but they've never really gone through the things that it takes grit. It takes really good, real drive to get to where you are. And then you tell me, hey, I'm stepping out of this business and I'm growing my own company. And I was just really empowered by that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Susan, your background, you've done so much.
Yeah.
So I wanted to use.
You've lived like 9 lives already.
I like to say that I'm in my 4th chapter of my life. I see things in chapters, partly because I'm trained as a professional writer. I don't use that skill as much as I used to. I use it every day, but not in a professional writing context like I used to. But I spent a little more than a decade in healthcare, male-dominated environment. When I was in healthcare, it was very much a toxic environment, what we would characterize as a toxic environment now. I didn't have that language then. Then I spent more than a decade in corporate training. Same thing. I ended up in a leadership role in a very large, a Fortune 20 organization, and a vice presidency in this organization. And I was one of 2 women on the executive team, and we were treated. I have to imagine, Candice, it's much the same way that you experienced in that sort of that submissive role that you talked about. We were really expected to kowtow to what all of the guys on the leadership team wanted, rather than to have our own voices and to bring the company forward in a way that was creative and interesting and different and ours, right? And both of us got demoted off of the executive leadership team at one point, and it became a real thing. And I had just had my daughter, and she was 2, I think, at the time, almost 3 at the time. And I went to my boss and I said, I'm out of here. And he said, I knew it was coming. My boss was one of the exceptions to this whole male dominated sort of situation. And he said, you're going to have to do an exit interview with human resources. I said, no problem. Because that's, coming from corporate, that's kind of the way that we do things, right? I already had a job lined up. I was going into academia. So that was chapter 3. But when I went in for this exit interview, the human resources person, a woman, asked me, what are you going to be doing? What's your next job? And I said, it's none of your business. And she said, well, I have to fill out this form. So she's kowtowing to this whole kind of construct that we have in corporate. And I finally just said to her, look, I'm not telling you. This is my life. I need to leave this for my own mental health. This was before we could do things like this for our mental health, before it was really accepted for us to walk away to save ourselves. And I went into academia for a little over a decade. So you'll see I do things in decades here. But that academic transition for me was a place of freedom to explore and to learn and to really dig into the things that I understood and the things that I didn't understand. So what you said about helping women figure out who they are and where they want to go next is really important to me, because that's what I discovered in that space. And as that was beginning to wind down, I landed this role at this little consultancy that offered coaching services and other executive sorts of training and leadership development, things I'd done throughout my entire career. And I thought, this is really interesting. I didn't even know this was a thing. So I hired a coach. And that coach said to me, it's time for you to do this for yourself, not for somebody else. And I didn't realize until that point that I had been waiting for permission to get up and do the thing that I was born to do all these years ago.
I got kind of trained. You didn't know you were trained.
I didn't know. I didn't know. And as I look back over all of these chapters that I've already finished, I see where I followed this sort of coaching approach to everything I did. I would find people who didn't believe in themselves and help them become the best versions of themselves in these weird ways. Like in this one role that I had, I cobbled together a team of people from other parts of the company, and their managers, these people's managers were like, this person's on the chopping block. And I said, why? And it ended up, it was sort of the beginning for me of this person is the right person in the wrong role. How do I help this person get into the right role? And that's really how I created what I'm doing now, which is figuring out what it is that people want and how to get there.
Right. And how do you, I would go back to Candice. How do you, in just a couple of words for women that are listening, like I feel like empowering women in 2025 that are afraid to step out. I mean, women in your situation, Susan, who came from the corporate world and then just said, oh no, I'm taking over my life. And it's more acceptable now when things are, where they are now. But what are a couple of things where you could really help someone to get out and start their own business? And what would be the first steps?
They need to answer, what can you provide that the world needs? Because that is different for everybody. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to start your own business, it's year 2000, year 1999, you wanted to start your own practice, I would ask you that same question. You got to search, do that introspection, and that requires time, meditation, journaling, whatever, prayer, whatever it is you do, to really get to know yourself. I'm kind of in that process still. I think it's just an ongoing forevermore.
but I think that what you did though, you're saying that, right? What you get yourself a foundation, your strengths and weaknesses, but you have to align yourself with people that are going to mentor you,
yes,
and be able to help you achieve what you want. And I really like I say this, I don't care if you want to be an astronaut, president of the United States, every day you got to do two things to get to that place. If every day you're not doing two things to get there, affirmations don't work unless there's action, right? That's that they don't.
Absolutely.
Because for me, I mean, I started out, I was in high school. I never really liked college, high school or school very much, but I'm in high school and I had 15 track scholarships. So I'm going to go to college. And then I went to college for 10 years, but I can still say I never really liked, going to school. And then I get to, I had some injuries and ran track, and then I went into bodybuilding for 25 years. And I truly believe one day I was driving on a bus to come here for a track meet. I was at Auburn, and I felt, I don't talk a lot about this, but I totally felt the presence of God. And the sense of moving here. I moved here, I didn't know anybody, but it was about starting school at Life College. And then I became a chiropractor, and I thought, man, I'm not really doing, like, I'm sending patients to another doctor for a pill for a problem without a solution. And that's when I started getting into natural medicine, naturopathic medicine, and doing all those hours. So when I look back and I think, I don't like to go to school, but I've done thousands of hours here and thousands, because I am driven and determined to make a difference. Because I think, just like an athlete, being an athlete, you're determined, and I'm driven to get results. And so I'm the same way with patients. I want to get results. So I've been in here since 2000. So it's been 25 years, and time flies and things have changed. But I haven't done what Susan has done, this. Yeah, I've done lots of different jobs, and then your background is where, you came from somewhere and you had to fight your way out of there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would consider, people would tell me way back when, well, you're ADD, you're this. I don't care what you want to label me. I'm going to get what I need to get, and I'll use other people to get there, right? To get what my fulfillment, because I'm about people and change and making a difference in people's lives. I think that's how I found my true calling was, it used to be me on stage, look at me, or winning a track meet. Someone comes in and they're like, oh, my autoimmune's gone. I'm like, that fills my heart. Like it's so fulfilling to, I say, change your demise. Some people go, what does that mean? We're going to change the way you actually leave this earth, because your health is declining, and we're going to change that. So now you're no longer in that disease pattern. So that's been the last 5 years. It's just been so empowering, because I've had so many injuries that God has pulled me away from my own, my ego bigger than the world. So he's like set me straight. Like, and my drive has been towards patients. So for me, with each patient, I feel like I'm mentoring them, and I see that they are wanting to do their own business. I'll give them tools, like I told you, I can give them certain tools. I'll introduce them to Susan to get mentoring, so I feel like really empowering women this year is like my goal. 2025, empowering people to step out and have belief in themselves in the right area, like you said, meditating and doing things they need to do. Susan, this is what you do. So what would you say, step 1, 2, 3, you're someone at home, kids are just leaving the house, or maybe your kids are younger and you stopped your business, or you never had a business. How would you even help someone to start that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And in some respects, it depends on who the person is and what their personality is, whether they're naturally an action-oriented kind of person versus somebody who's a little more reticent. I would say for me, it was socializing the idea. I had to talk to other people about, is this a crazy idea, this thing that I'm thinking about doing? And the more I talked about it, the more I realized that there really is a need for people like us who truly believe that our role on earth is to help other people be better or be better versions of themselves. And so I that's where I started. The second thing I did was I hired a coach. And I'll say this, don't ever work with a coach who doesn't have a coach. Coaches need coaches, just like doctors need doctors and lawyers need lawyers and all of those kinds of things. I hired a coach who challenged me to really dig in deep into why I wanted to do it and how I was going to do it. And she helped me put some structure behind the whole process. And then I did the mechanical things. So your website, business cards, branding, all of those kinds of things. So it kind of followed that method of getting started. But I think the most important part for me was that initial socialization where I just had these ideas sparking in my head. And I'm thinking, that seems really like a leap of faith. Am I ready for this leap of faith? And so I went to people I trusted and just said, hey, what do you think about this? And the more support I got, the better I felt about it. And I think, that goes to your point about rallying behind women who want to step out and do things. Maybe it's somebody who wants to sell Mary Kay. Maybe it's somebody who wants to open a marketing firm, social media marketing firm. Maybe it's somebody who wants to do home health. I don't know. There are myriad ideas that could come to fruition.
But one thing that you do that is really impressive for me. So you have people take certain tests and you go, okay, this is your personality. Because I was like, oh, that's my personality. Okay. So this is your personality. This is where you fit well. And these are the things that are your gifts and these other things are not.
Yeah.
So I think it's really great, like you're saying, to have a coach.
Yeah.
So if businesses, because I know you help businesses coaching along or just one-on-one.
Yep.
If somebody wanted to contact you to help them get started, what's good information that someone could reach you at?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's susanhonea.com, and we'll put that in the podcast notes. And I think that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, so feel free to drop into the DMs there. Ask somebody else if they know me. If you're in the metro Atlanta area, I know a lot of coaches in this area. We're all connected. Most of us went to Life to get our master's in positive psychology. So, I too am a Life University graduate, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that institution. And but it's created this big community of people who want to help others. And so ask. And I have a scheduling link right on my website. Feel free to just hop on and book time with me.
Good. And Candice, this is my thought about how you can help women, because there's women listening now, hopefully, that are stuck, be it a culture where they are, and they need a hand up and they need help and they need that, even speaking. You said you do some speaking and you want to write a book. And so how can someone contact you if they're interested in you speaking or interested in, you helping them get out of that situation to get them going, get them out of the.
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. That's where I've built a lot of my network. I've spoken to nonprofits. I was thinking when you were talking, the power of your network. I'm just constantly meeting new people. I love Atlanta for that reason. It's been very receptive to me and welcoming. And I'm constantly learning about new opportunities for me to speak. I spoke to a group of maybe about 30 women who were human trafficking, sex trafficking survivors here in Atlanta, called House of Cherith, which I had never even heard of that before. I walk in there and the woman who told me about House of Cherith is inspiring to me. She has a story of her own, very professional. And she said, Candice, you have to share your story because people see you from the outside and they assume, oh, she's had such a great life. You know, her parents supported her. She's had a silver spoon. You know, it's all been handed to her. But as soon as I get up there and I tell them, you know, I used to live in a hut with a dirt floor. I used to live in a house made out of mud, like to give them an idea about the poverty level that I've experienced or alcoholism from my ex-husband. I could go on and on, just little stories that I've told, just sprinkled throughout my speech, which was hope. Yes, because these women, they were asking me for help with I come from business development in the recruiting industry. So they were needing help with how do I find a job? I was working on the streets, you know, and now I want to have a real job where they actually take me seriously. How do I even start? They don't know. And so I'm giving them those mechanics of how to get there, but also inspiring them like, hey, this girl, like she learned this all the hard way, you know?
You live in, what was surprising when we had a conversation, our daughter works for a women's, you met Paula. And
yes, Women in Technology,
right.
correct?
And they do a lot of that stuff.
Yes, you're right.
They do a lot of that stuff. So, and for me, I really, drdady.com or drdady@drdady.com, if anyone really wants to talk about any health issues that are going on. And I always call it like peeling the onion, healing one layer at a time until you're no longer.
We all do that though. We all use that onion.
I love that onion.
Because that's who we are as humans.
Thank you today for tuning in. And thank you guys so much for sitting and having this conversation. I honestly thought of this while I was blowing my hair. I'm like, I was in the bathroom and I'm like, we need to like talk about how we can help women in 2025 to step out and empower them to take on the world. One person can, you think, oh, I'm just one person. One person can change so much.
Absolutely.
God bless and thanks for listening.